let's start with your individual season. How would you assess how that went?
Yeah, I was telling Luke that downstairs, he's like, "You had a good year," and I'm like, kind of past the point of my own individual stat. Obviously, you want to contribute and produce, but I think you naturally do that with the way you play, and so I felt good about that. That they trusted me in all situations, and was able to help push it along. But you know, being second last place is not a good feeling either. And as a person that cares a lot about the group, I think that's something I judge more on is where I feel like we're headed and the year that we had and what could get better. So I tend to kind of start to fall into that trap and beat myself up a little bit. But I wanted to come in here and help make an impact, and I feel like I did that in some ways, and some ways maybe not, just with our record and stuff like that. But I'm proud to be here, and I see a lot of hope and excitement, and I'm encouraged about that. That there is a path forward, and we're gonna push this. And I think I was a little pointed at the end of the year because I was pissed off about the loss, but that is something that's important to me, is that we have an identity of what we're trying to be, and I think guys understand that, and now we're gonna work towards that.
How do you balance that where as a player you want to win now, you want to kind of speed up the rebuilding process while understanding that it might take a little patience, like holding the team to a high standard, but also realizing there's still a little bit of a gap that
Yeah, I probably balance that because I have kids, so I see it every day with my own kids, where you expect them to do something, they fall a little short, but they can do it. And honestly, it's listen. I'm a competitor. We all are in that room. And when you play this game this long, and you see the abilities of what a great season can feel like, or just a season where you really feel like you've taken steps, it drives you. And there's years where, like this one, where it just feels like we took a step forward and two steps back sometimes. And I think that's what frustrated me with this group, is that you could see promise and we just didn't sustain it enough. And so I would get a little frustrated with that because, you knew it was in there. And I was talking about, it's a mindset. It really is. It truly is a mindset of are you willing to do what's necessary and what's asked of you by the team? Not what you maybe want to do, but what the team needs you to do each and every night. And I think that's where we had to grow and get better. And you saw some guys do it, and some guys, honestly, it's not that no one wanted to do it. I just think some guys just didn't know how either, right? Like, we had a lot of guys come up that had to play in different roles. We had a lot of new faces, young kids that have never experienced the NHL. It's a hard league, and I think that's where we kind of fall in the trap of, like what our expectations were and what the reality was, and I think that's kind of where we got caught this year, is that, I'm always going to expect more. And I think that's how the only way you get better, and I'm sure a lot of guys in that room feel the same way. But the reality was we had a lot of unforeseen circumstances, and I'm aware of that. But I'm never going to use that as an excuse. I'm not going to allow that to be the narrative here. I'm gonna say, okay, what could we have done in that instance then? How can we have moved forward in regards to that? And I think that's how you build a culture and a winning culture.
A couple of guys made the point earlier that when you have guys on one-year deals or short-term deals, it's hard to build culture and build that continuity. Do you agree with that? And do you feel like you have the space and the liberty to express that to management?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all trying to get this to be a better place than it was yesterday or the start of the year. So absolutely, you can voice those opinions. I think a lot of times, though, that narrative's tough for me, because I think being a good pro is understanding that you have a job to do, regardless of what contract you're. Sometimes guys have their best years with a one-year deal. If you look at the Vegas Golden Knights the first year, there were a bunch of misfits, cast-offs, and they go on to go to the Stanley Cup final or have a great season. And so I don't really get too caught up in contracts. I think if you're playing based on the comfort level that you have, to me, you're not a good pro. I think you need to always be. I go into every training camp honestly thinking I got to make the team. I don't care how long you've played. That's their job. You're a professional. You are expected to perform at the level you need to perform at each and every day, and that's part of. I'm not saying that I understood this at 19. I get it. I'm an older player now, but that's what I'm trying to instill in the group, and I'm trying to teach them along with a lot of other guys, is that there's a job to do each and every time you come to the rink, and it's a privilege to play in this league, and as much as fun as it is, and whatever age you're at, if you can understand that at a young age, you're going to be that much further ahead because you realize the work and the effort and the commitment that goes into it. And so that's where I think our group has to mature and understand is if you want the big contracts, if you want the opportunities that you're looking for, I see it a lot of times. It's that, out of a entry level contract, you want the big deal. Show that you understand the privilege and the responsibility it takes to get that. And, that's what we're trying to build here is that, I want to see all our players be on long-term deals. That means we've built something here that's sustainable, that's heading in the right direction, and so it's as much on us as players to have our management believe in us and bring in those type of players and give you the opportunity to have that team. But it starts with us first. And these are the, not dog days, but these are the years you grind, and then it makes it so much more worth it in the coming ones where you've built a foundation that's not going to fall out from underneath you, that's going to sustain this organization for a long time.
In terms of what you said the other day in LA about needing some personnel changes this summer, was that topic discussed in your exit?
I haven't met with management, but
okay.
it's more, what I meant by that is it's a results league, right? And I've played on teams that have had great years. I've played on teams that haven't and had expectations. And so things change. And the good organizations like this one, they don't stand pat for very long. It's okay, what are we going to do? And I understand we're in a rebuilding phase or whatever you want to call it, but I don't want to be one of those teams that's rebuilding for 5-6 years. And not for selfish reasons, just that's not how you really grow a winning culture. You can't be in that cycle for so long. So I understand that you're not just going to jump from one stage to the next. I know there's a progression, but I also don't think you can just be caught in that mindset either. I think you have to be pushing to jump and want that, and I understand the work that goes in between it, but I don't want to also be like, next year if we get, 10 more wins than this year, well, we're still not a playoff team. We're still not playing meaningful games, right? So, yeah, maybe we improved from this past season, but is it really an improvement? Meaningful games are improvements. That's how you understand the way to play in a game, the way you need to impact your team, the role you might need to take on. So that to me is how you grow, and then you all of a sudden now you're a little more battle hardened, and you have the mindset of being a team that's pushing now for the playoffs, and all of a sudden now you're a playoff team. And then, now we're pushing for a championship, and that's just the progression. And so I just don't want to see us toil and being okay with maybe 10 more wins next year. It should be, no, I want to be like those teams that were pushing for the playoffs in the last bit of the season. And, I think that's a realistic goal for this group.
So much of this season was supposed to be about player development and getting, Connor and Korchinski, all these guys, that, those reps. And a year from now, what's realistic? Maybe those guys taking a step, or how much more can they maybe carry a year from now than you guys did this season, some of the veterans?
I think they've learned how hard this league is, and I think they've learned a lot about themselves and what they need to take into a summer to get bigger, stronger, faster, better, which is a great sign for us with Connor. And I know we call it the Connor Bedard era, but I also call it, the start of Alex Vlasic era too, and what he's done for our team already, and Korchinski. And so I think that's maybe the silver lining in this year is those guys have really gotten a lesson in how ugly it can be sometimes, and hopefully they're motivated by that to not allow that to be the norm here. And what can they do to become better versions of themselves, just like all of us veteran guys or the people that are going to be here are looking to do, And I think any young player, I hope they're walking away from a season of man, I can do this a lot better. That's the way. An improved Connor Bedard is a scary thought, right? And it's an amazing thing for us to have, is that he knows there's things he can work on and get better at, and that's only going to make our team that much better. And same with Korchinski, same with Vlas, same with a lot of guys. Reichel, there's a lot of younger guys that there's room for improvement. And I think there's a lot of guys that are, older players that have been here a little bit or that can still improve as well, And I think that's why growing this and making sure that you're dangling the carrot further down the line, it keeps pushing people to continue to not accept the status quo. And that's where I think those guys have gotten a taste of, this sucks. This is a bad feeling. I don't want to stand here in April. I want to come stand here in June and talk about a Stanley Cup or a great season, whatever it may be. And that's, I think, the goal is making sure that you're putting yourself in a position, those guys especially, to help push this along. whether that's getting stronger or faster or understanding where they can improve in their game. And I think they obviously know those areas as the year's gone along. And then collectively as a group, we become a better team.
Seth said that you talked about identity pieces. Is one of those like maybe having a jerk in a room, or I said a-hole to him, you know, the kind of shake up complacency, push buttons when needed.
Well, we already have Seth. He's a jerk. So you need characters. I actually learned that from Torts, who's a character himself. But he was really good about that. He's like, I don't want all the same players. I like when there's a guy who's got a little swagger to him, or it's important in a group, right? Like you don't want all the same type of mindsets. You need to have a little bit of friction in there sometimes, and guys that don't maybe see things the same way, because you sometimes do need different views and opinions, and that's the beauty of a team, right? Is that you a collective group coming together for the same goal, but different kinds of walks of life and different ways that they got there. And I think sometimes you need a little snarl or a different kind of, not a jerk, but just somebody that brings juice. I always talk about you need juice, you need mojo, a guy that brings energy, and I think you can never have enough of those guys. And they're hard to find. They're hard to find. When they walk in a room, you kind of know who they are. They're loud, or they bring a presence to them, and they're important to a group. You don't need 100 of them, but you definitely need a few, especially in probably where we're at in our spot right now. The more the merrier, probably, in a lot of ways. So that is important. I think it's also something that you can pull out of yourself. It's not just, it doesn't have to be just something. It's an acquired ability too. So because again, you're doing it for the collective good of the group, right? And everyone has different ways of doing it. Some guys are just play drivers. I play with guys that you don't have to talk, but the way they play, they might be the quietest guy in the room, but they play like animals. And then there's the guys that are really energetic in the room, and it kind of carries onto the ice. So they're called play drivers in the sense that they pull you into the fight. And I don't think there's ever enough of those guys on a team. And it's amazing when you have a lot of those teams how hard they are to play against, or a lot of those guys on the team how hard they are to play against.
What are your summer plans?
Dad now. I got we got 9:15. Our flight got delayed till yesterday morning, and I was in Vernon Hills yesterday for 2 hockey games. So with my boys, my son, he's in a tournament. So yeah, I'm excited just to be home, be present, recharge the batteries, and they give me a lot of juice in a way. Just it's nice to be with them and enjoy being dad for a little bit. And but then we'll head up to Sudbury. We have a summer home up there. Then we'll go home and see family and spend our time on the lake, and that's where I really recharge my batteries. And then just come back and I'm highly motivated with where we're at and what I see. I'm excited to have the conversations, some probably hard conversations with management, with team, and just get this moving in the right direction. This was a year that I think we learned a lot about ourselves, and we saw some growth from some players, and we also saw some shortcomings that we need to probably address as a group, and whether it's individual or as a team, and make sure that we come in with a mindset of it has to be better. It has to be better than it was this year, for our fans, for ourselves. I mean, we're as much as we love our fans, we're the ones that are grinding out there every day, and it's we expect more of ourselves too. So I want to put a great brand of hockey on the ice for the fans, but more so for those guys in the room, so we can sustain a culture in here that's winning and fun to come into, and then we can enjoy ourselves in between, even you guys having to ask better questions than the hard ones you're asking now.
How much confidence do you have in Luke as the head coach and the culture that he's helping build?
Yeah, I think it was a hard year for Luke, but I have confidence in him for sure. I know that, I think we all want to see improvement in certain aspects, and I think all of us can get better. So in a year like this, I'm sure there's things that he'd like to do different, or wished he could have done different. But I think for the most part, I think he's done a good job of giving us what we need to do in order to be successful. I think there's always areas that you want to improve when you're second to last place, but for the most part, I know Luke's heart, and I know what he's trying to do for our group, and now we just have to make sure we manifest that a little bit more.
Are players held accountable?
Our players?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's always an area you can do a better job in, though. I think that's something that accountability starts from the top and then works its way down, and then it's the players can hold each other accountable because of that. So I do think there's an area that we can grow there. And accountability is tough because sometimes they're hard conversations. And I will say that this year, I don't know if we were ready to be as accountable as we needed to be with a lot of things that went on. There's almost so many other things that we had to worry about as opposed to that. But I think that is one of the areas that has to improve and will improve because there is a standard now of this can't happen. And when you have that mindset and everyone believes that, then you just don't allow yourself to fall backwards. And that's where our group has to understand and get to, is that the standard here has to go way up. And that's from everybody, top to bottom, players, staff, personnel, coaches, everybody. And if we have that mindset, then the accountability almost takes care of itself. But it's one of the most important things in the culture and in the team, and the greats have it.
Even though it's been a tough season, there's always great moments, no matter what. What has been your favorite moment?
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, there's things within the room that it's fun to see, and I think just rallying around guys at certain points this year. Yeah, I don't know. Even just the first home game was an unbelievable experience too. And I know we didn't win, but just I think Connor scored first goal within minutes, and the place went crazy. So that one sticks out for sure. You know, and yeah, just little things along the way. But I mean, it's hard to really be nostalgic about that this year, because there's a lot of things that I'm looking at already as I'm already almost in next season, as bad as that sounds, and the way I'm thinking and just where my head's at is I'm very appreciative and I'm really excited to be a Chicago Blackhawk, and I think I've made that known. But I want to see the Chicago Blackhawks where I expect us to be, you know, and I think the fans do too. And I know that's going to take time, but that's where my head's at, is just that I want to get this to a place where the UC's rocking every night, and when we walk into a building, everyone knows it's the Chicago Blackhawks coming to play, you know, and so that's where, you know, my mind goes already. But yeah, I'm definitely appreciative of the group, and I know I say all this, but I genuinely love the group of guys. You know, I think that's something that's important to mention, is it's a good group in there. It's you know, it's nothing to take away from every guy. They gave their absolute best, in my opinion, but it wasn't good enough, and that's what I mean by changes have to be made. And so I give everyone a ton of credit in a tough year. We all worked hard. We all worked hard in some adverse settings, but you know, more is needed. And whether that's from the players, they can give more, and if not, then we're gonna have to go find some other ones, or figure out a way to get more out of them.
We called you the de facto captain this year. Does the team need a captain? Can it become a committee like it was?
I don't know. I don't really. That's a hard one for me to say. I think if you're a true leader, you're just going to do what you do the way you need to do it, and not worry about titles. You know, I don't really think that really matters to me. I think at the end of the day, we're a team that needs leadership, and we need to point in a direction and push to go there. But I think it can be done collectively. I think it can be done with, you know, the right mindset of every guy. So, yeah, I don't know. I was really impressed with some of the guys stepping up in leadership roles this year when they had to, and you know, and obviously been in that role a long time in my career. It's encouraging to see that we have those type of players in this team. So I'm excited about that part. At least I feel like we have some good pieces in place. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about a captain right now. I'm more thinking about the group collectively.
How do you think Connor balanced the expectations on the ice and also the volume of requests and expectations away from the rink?
Yeah, he handled that really well. He really did. I give that kid a ton of credit for the year he had, faced with a lot of things that were uncontrolled, and he seemed to just, you know, put his head down and work, and I think we really appreciate him for that. You know, he never really got too out of sorts with it. He just kept coming to the rink. You can tell he loves the game of hockey, and I think the biggest thing for him is just, you know, making sure he finds that joy each and every day, and not getting too caught up in his expectations or other people's expectations, and just being the best version of Connor that he can be every day. And I think that's what the guys appreciate about him. He's always trying to be, you know, a better version of himself, and it's impressive at a young age that he's got that already dialed in. So yeah, I give him a ton of credit for the way he's handled this year, and I look forward to him taking a big step next year too. You know, I think that's what's exciting, is I still think there's a lot in Connor that is still raw and can be developed, and that's a pretty scary thought, you know, and what he's able to accomplish already at 18. So, you know, the good news is he's the type of guy that doesn't get too caught up in anything. He's just, now he's moving ahead, and I'm excited to see a 19-year-old Connor Bedard.